Good morning, everyone joining the meeting on time. We're happy to have you here today. So maybe we can just give people a little bit more time, maybe probably 5 minutes to see if we can be able to get more people joining, and then we can start once it's 5 minutes past top of the hour. But in the meantime, those who are already here, please feel free to put your name in the chat box, your organization, and where you're connecting from. It will be great to know whom we have in the meeting today. I don't see anyone putting anything in the chat box. So as I had mentioned, you can just put your name, the organization you're coming from, if you're affiliated to any organization, and also the country you're in. We will be starting in the next 2 minutes. Great. So it's 5 minutes past, so maybe we'll just proceed and more people will be joining as the meeting is ongoing. So just to welcome you again to the second webinar of the African ACBA Biodiversity Academy. We are so happy to have you here. If you're joining for the first time, welcome. If you're coming again from the first webinar, we are glad to have you here. For the sake of those who are joining for the first time, my name is Olivia Tawarar. I work with the Secretariat of the African CSOs Biodiversity Alliance, and we will be hosting you today here. So just a few house rules. Please make sure that you mute your mic to avoid background noise, especially when presenters are speaking. In case you have anything you want to say, to contribute as well, please use the raise hand button and we will give you an opportunity to speak. We're hoping that we will have enough time to have a Q&A session so that you can interact with the experts who will be speaking in the meeting today. In case you don't want to speak or you are shy, also feel free to use the chat box and put your comments, your contribution to the chat box, and we will definitely attend to it. And then please just note that this meeting is recorded for future reference, so that in case you would want to go back to listen to the recording, or for those people who will not be able to join the meeting. And just to let you know also that we had shared the participant workbook on email last time, and we've also shared it this morning. So feel free to have it open and use it to put down some of the key takeaways that you'll pick from the session. And then please, those who were not able to join the first meeting, we will be sharing the link of the recording. I also shared it on email this morning, but we'll share it in the chat box as well so that you can follow through the conversation, especially those who are not able to join the first meeting. But before we start, allow me to just do a short recap of the discussion that we had in the first meeting. We had like a thorough uh, uh, deep dive into the introduction to EcoTrust Nature-Based Conservation Finance Model, which was presented by the Executive Director of EcoTrust Uganda, who is Pauline Natongo. And we also used that webinar as an opportunity to officially launch the Academy, and the Executive Director of African CSOs Biodiversity Alliance was able to give us a little bit more insight about who we are as African CSOs Biodiversity Alliance, and also talking a little bit more about the ACBA Biodiversity Academy, which is a platform that we have developed to help strengthen the capacity of the African CSOs on biodiversity issues and also climate issues. EcoTrust also shared its innovative nature-based conservation finance model, which combines blended finance, carbon credits, biodiversity credits, and community enterprises to support landscape restoration. Participants also had an opportunity to learn the importance of developing a strong value proposition, and there was an assignment that was given, by the way, in the first webinar. I hope you were able to do the assignment, because that was the main reason as to why we had that first session. We also went a little bit more into participant being taught how to conduct barrier analysis when designing conservation finance initiative. And the discussion in the first webinar also highlighted key implementation considerations, and EcoTrust was able to also go into details and share some of the community engagements they've had, how they've been able to work directly with the community to support them, and also sharing a few insights on the collaborations they've had with different stakeholders, government included. So I don't know if Arnold has created a Slido that he will share in the chat box, or I don't know, the EcoTrust team has created that. But this will just help us to get an idea of what the assignment that was given in the first webinar. So if you already have your value proposition, if you already have an idea of the name of the business that you've come up with from the first webinar, you can use the link that will be shared in the chat box, the Slido link, and you can input that information that you've already started working on, so that we just get an idea of if you are literally paying attention in the first webinar, and if you're working on the assignment that was given in the first webinar. But in today's webinar, we will be going a little bit into details and build on the foundation that was already created by Pauline, and explore the tools and methodologies needed to design high integrity conservation finance schemes. But before I go into details into that, allow me to welcome Dr. Yemi Katerere to just give us a few remarks, especially for those who are joining us for the first time, because he's the Executive Director of African CSOs Biodiversity Alliance. Just a few remarks and welcome you to the webinar today. So over to you, Yemi.
Thanks, Olivia. So really, I want to keep it short because we want to get into the nitty-gritty and get details on the delivery model of EcoTrust in terms of the methodologies, the tools, and so forth that they use. But last week for the first webinar, we did officially launch the ACBA Biodiversity Academy. And we really thank all those that were able to join that first webinar. We had an excellent turnout, and we're able to celebrate the launch of the academy. And the one defining thing that we did share with those that joined was that we're taking a different approach. We're not developing modules, academic modules, and then following a traditional teaching approach. Here, what we are doing is we're saying the ACBA Biodiversity Academy is an academy by the members for the members. So we are actually looking at the members sharing their knowledge, their expertise, their experience, the lessons with other members and partners, and to then use that as the basis for other members and partners to see how they can adapt those lessons, those methods, tools, and so forth, in order to scale the work that they are doing and to enhance the impact that their organizations that are having. So really, it's a very powerful space for the members that have been working on different ways of engaging and trying to find sustainable solutions to biodiversity conservation, and also at the same time to be able to generate revenue and support local livelihoods. So that was the real point. These three webinars, as we mentioned, they are connected. So the first one was the introduction of the model, a background to the whole space around monetization of biodiversity on the ground, whether it's carbon markets, biodiversity credits, um, overall payment for environmental services. This second one is really focusing on those methodologies, the tools. So these are connected. And then the third one, we'll start now to really get onto the ground and hear testimonials. We hear from the people that are on the ground in terms of how they've worked, how they've benefited, and how this has changed and transformed their livelihoods. So we're looking forward to this second installment by EcoTrust. So we want to thank EcoTrust for being ready and able to deliver the inaugural webinar series for the Biodiversity Academy. So back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yemi, for that. And because we don't want to waste more time, allow me to welcome the Executive Director of EcoTrust Uganda, who will later welcome the team from EcoTrust Uganda, who will be giving us the presentation. So over to you, Pauline.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope you can see my slides. But thank you very much. It's always a pleasure for us to share our experiences. And having moved from the first webinar, which was giving you the overall model of EcoTrust, today different staff members of EcoTrust presenting to you different approaches in as far as the methodologies are concerned. So we have 3 individuals led by Dr. Diana Naranga. Dr. Diana Naranga is one of Africa's leading conservationists, mostly ornithologists. Dr. Diana Naranga has a PhD in her doctorate in biodiversity conservation from Makerere University. She has also, in recognition of her contribution to conservation, she was also awarded an honor warden status by the Uganda Wildlife Authority. And Dr. Diana also sits on the Species Royalties Committee for BirdLife East Africa, representing Uganda. She has more than 20 years of conservation science that she brings to the table today. We have Lydia Kuganyira. Lydia Kuganyira has been at the forefront of converting very high-level scientific principles in the carbon market into practicable actions, practicable systems that can enable landscape restoration, meeting the needs of the communities, at the same time also meeting the international standards. And then Sheila Katshabe heads our MRV team. Sheila is one of the most innovative people that I've ever come across. She's able to convert whatever problem, whatever challenge into an MRV tool, into a digital platform that is able to remove from work. So today, those 3 individuals are going to share from their experiences and present to you what it is like to align the needs and aspirations of local communities with very high technical international demands from they could be organic certification standards, it could be biocredit standards, could be accessing markets, high-level markets, and also biodiversity credits. So today we are hoping that you will learn how to develop and go through a certification process, but also they will give you some insights on how we have adapted even already existing tools to be able to walk through this. And like Olivia already mentioned at the beginning, we already had an assignment from the beginning of the webinars in how to draft some hypothetical project. So I'm hoping today we will learn from you what you have come up with. But with those few remarks, I hand over to Diana to kickstart the learning exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning, everyone. Yes,
Good morning,
thank you, Pauline, for that introduction. I hope I fit your standards. Yes, so what we are going to go through today is the follow-on of what Pauline presented last week. I hope we still remember, because most of what we are going to talk about is it needs background from what we shared, from what she shared yesterday. So we are briefly, and I mean briefly, going to go through the methodologies for designing the high integrity community nature projects as it's just part of what she talked about last week. But we just want to give you a feel of how we do our work, how we manage to have high integrity community projects, how we manage to satisfy the needs of the communities, but at the same time satisfying the needs of the global community. As she mentioned last time, our projects are focusing on the market-based incentives, but that fit international standards. So entry into the market, the nature market, requires certification following international standards, international approved standards. Pauline talked about several certification standards when she was talking last time. And yes, we assessed the certification standards for the nature market. And we zeroed on, we agreed, we chose to work with the Plan Vivo standard for the reasons that I'll highlight later. But our main focus was to find a standard which aligns the local community needs and aspirations to the requirements of the international standard. So there are many standards. Every project can decide, every project developer can decide to use whatever standard works for them, but it depends on your vision, the vision that you have for your project. So for us, we chose the Plan Vivo standard because it fits in with the community needs, our needs as EcoTrust, and then the community needs and aspirations based on the communities that we work with. So this aligning is a very delicate act. And that's why she talked about lots of innovations that we've come up with as EcoTrust. We need to be innovative, and the innovation has to be living. The innovations come, we have to move with the globe, we have to move with the community aspirations, we have to move with the community needs. The community needs change depending on the environment, depending on the change in priority. So we have to be innovative at all times. So as EcoTrust, we have developed innovations that fit within this, but all those innovations align to international standards. And we have chosen the Plan Vivo standard. This standard, all the standards require the development of the project idea notes, which are the concepts that when we're developing proposals, we develop those first concepts that just tell the idea that you have. Then it moves on to the real project design document, which is the proposal, the project proposal, which requires additional information. So that's for all the standards. But for us, we chose the workbook is created to help us. Sorry, my slides seem not to be moving, but okay, sorry about that. So we chose the Plan Vivo standard because of its holistic nature. It's holistic, that it goes beyond just money. It goes beyond just community needs. It goes through the requirements of nature, climate, and community. So it's holistic in nature, and also it's transparent and accountable. With equitable benefit sharing, it has a streamlined tracking through the third-party registry. It's real, robust, and verifiable. It's verifiable in that it shows the real, genuine benefit for nature, the impact for nature. It's verifiable, and we have worked with Plan Vivo for some time, and because of its many years of experience, we've worked with them for all we are celebrating 27 years. So for all the standards, the carbon standard and the nature standards, we've been working with Plan Vivo. So we are we are confident that we are getting the returns on investment on working with them. While you're looking at you as a project, you as a project developer, you have to align your vision, your plans with the global standards. And each, as I told you, each standard has its own requirements. So the key requirements for the Plan Vivo projects are focused on the land rights. The land rights in the projects focus so much on community benefit. The return to the landowner, the landowner is the most important figure in the whole project, because if the landowner doesn't work to the success of the project, then it will never work. Even though you come with the money, you as a donor, but when the landowner hasn't really agreed to work with you, if the landowner is not in tandem with your aspirations, with your visions, then your project might never work. So the beauty about this standard is that it focuses on the landowner, who is the real rights owner. So for this Plan Vivo standard, the land, the rights to the land have to be held with the community members exclusively. So it's not 100% true. For example, where land is partially owned by the community and another entity, Plan Vivo has an allowance. This standard has an allowance of either type 1 or type 2 projects, where type 1, the land is owned by the community up to 20%. Like it should be only like 30% owned by the external entity. That is the type 1. Then the type 2 is where the land is not owned by the community. So Plan Vivo will cater for all this, but the benefit sharing plans will be different depending on what project you are agreeing to develop. So that is the land ownership, the tenure rights, the ownership of the benefits that come from the land. And then the management of the land should also be done by the community. Now, this one, regardless of whether type 1 or type 2, the management of the land should be by the community. So, and the communities should be able to manage this land for the duration of the project. So when you're developing a project, whether it's for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, the community should own the tenure, should own either the customary land tenure, or they have a binding agreement, or they own the land and all the benefits for that project time. This is regardless of whether type 1 or type 2. So even though the land doesn't belong to the community, that is type 2, the management of the land should be by the community. Then the third key requirement is the project, the activities should center around restoration, conservation, and improved land management. That is the nature-based nature of the project. So, how holistic? This standard requires a participatory design, which is transparent, accountable, legal, and it has to demonstrate community ownership. Participatory means you develop this together. You, the project developer, and the community, you have to work together on this. The tendency that we have with project developers is that we develop the concept, develop the proposals, get money, and then take the approved project to the communities for implementation. Now, that top-down model is not acceptable in this standard. This standard requires a bottom-down, where even before you develop the proposal, you're developing it together with the community, in that the communities have to demonstrate the ownership of the project from day one. They have to own this. Otherwise, it might fail. If you develop things that don't work in the community, then that will fail. Then in that development, the project has to show the biodiversity impact, which is real additional, and quantifiable and monitorable, in that all your monitoring programs have to be replicable. They have to be they can be repeated. They can be copied and taken to replicated in other areas. For example, if you have a plan of expansion, these should be replicable. And then the social impact, it has to demonstrate positive livelihood and socio-economic impacts. And you have to have an equitable benefit sharing plan, which is part of the documents that you're developing. And then it has to have a climate impact, where you have to report on the environmental conditions, the environmental safeguarding. You have to cater for the environmental safeguarding, and then to build climate change resilience. So all these are this is the holistic way of approach for this standard. And that's why it works for us. And most importantly, you have to develop a benefit sharing model which is equitable, and it has to have a 60-40% benefit share. 60 for the 60 of the finance that you get from the nature market. For example, if you sell your climate or your nature credits and you get the money, the benefit sharing plan should be a 60-40 share. 60 back to the community, 40 to you, the project developer. In this case, to us, EcoTrust. So the 60% is to do the community work back to the community, and the communities have to agree on how they are using this. The benefit share, they develop a benefit sharing plan which works for them. So you don't tell them how to spend this money. The 60%, it's up to them. Then the 40% comes back to the project developer for the feasibility assessment, for the capacity building, the MRV system development, all the administration is catered for under this 40%. We'll talk about that. That's a different webinar. We'll talk about that another time. But yeah, that is the benefit sharing plan that is required for this standard. So the 60% is to ensure the efficiency of the whole project, of the whole outcomes, of the whole impact, and then the 40%. The 40% is to cater for the efficiency, how the project is developed, how is it run? Will it fit the market? Will it produce viable credits? So all that has to be catered for in the 40%. Then the 60% is the effectiveness. Will the communities find value? Will they find value in this project, and will they continue with it? So basically, that's the requirement. So all those requirements are checked by the standard through a process. It's a process that this is the Plan Vivo standard now. It goes through a process of assessing whether, first of all, assessing whether the project will be marketable, will it even develop credits, and then it goes through the whole process until certification. So the certification process starts with the eligibility check. Now the eligibility check is just a quick, as I told you, you first develop your concept. But before you develop your concept, you have to first check whether your project will even fit this standard, because the standards have different requirements. So you first check whether your project fits this standard. Now, this is done with the standard. The Plan Vivo does its part, and you also do your part. Here we have two lanes, the overall PB nature process lane, and then the overall specific methodological steps. So for both, whether it's the nature credits and the biodiversity credits, and then the climate credits and the carbon credits. So I'll be using these words, but just get the main concept. So after you do a quick eligibility check and you think that your project fits this Plan Vivo standard, then you start the process of project development, which is a project certification process. It goes from the eligibility check up to the third-party verification. And you start, as I told you, you start with a project idea note. Here, it just produces a brief concept that shows what you want to do. And then this is verified by the Plan Vivo team. And if it fits within the standard, it has all the requirements, it has the additionality that is required, it has a realistic theory of change and the project logic, it shows that you as the developer, you have the capacity to conduct the detailed community engagement. As I told you, these are Plan Vivo projects are community projects. So you have to prove, you as the developer, that you have the capacity to engage the community. Not like engage once, but it's a continuous process. And you have to prove that capacity. If you don't have that capacity, then prove that I can get it from somewhere. For example, get a consultant to do this for you. So you have to show that you will do it. Then after you prove all that, then you're pushed to the project design document stage. Here is it's improving the PIN, but adding detailed information, adding proof, showing that yes, what I said in the PIN is correct because I have attached this evidence. And then when you finish that, then your PDD is taken for the technical review. So Plan Vivo has a technical review, which is outside the Plan Vivo team, but these are it's a technical team with knowledge on what your project is all about. So they get to you, these are approved by Plan Vivo, and they'll help you improve your project, make sure it's going to fit the market, make sure it has all the requirements that will make it a sellable project. All that is checked at that point. But as that is going on, you're also developing the methodological steps. These ones move in tandem, the Plan Vivo process and the real physical project development on ground by you as the developer, in that case, as EcoTrust. So when you're developing the PIN, you're also developing the project boundary map. Now, this boundary map should have the habitats in your site to specify what methods you're going to use based on your habitat. And then you also have to develop a baseline sampling plan. This baseline is the baseline for crediting. Yes, you should have done a baseline to know your habitat, to know your site. You do your own baseline to know, okay, yes, I have a forest site and it has this and this. But you have to do the baseline for crediting, which is this baseline that is done here before your PDD is approved. And in that baseline, you do the baseline, and then previously you would have selected the target groups that you're going, the target biodiversity, all the technical specification of your climate project. You have pre-selected those, but after the baseline, then it proves exactly what you have. What are we talking about? Yes, you say birds, but how many birds do you have? You have wetland birds or do you have forest birds? Yes, you say you have mammals. What mammals do you have? Do you have rodents or do you have primates? So at this time, you tune your target groups, and then you set your data collection plan for the crediting. Okay, so as you do that, the Plan Vivo process also moves, and then by the time you reach your third-party verification and you pass that, then your project is registered. And that's when you're starting the crediting process. At that time, we count that as year zero. Year zero, based on your baseline, the biodiversity data that was collected. When you register, your project is certified, and then you start counting year zero. Then you do annual monitoring, and then the annual biodiversity certificate will start issuing. It's like in the next 2 plus years, depending on how the baseline goes. And all this goes through a third-party verification. That's why I told you that third-party verification is what we think makes it a holistic standard. So yeah, that's very complicated, but yeah, EcoTrust are there to take you through that. So as I told you, the community engagement is very important. And to emphasize this, the community engagement is a continuous process from the land being owned by the community. So as in us, EcoTrust, our projects that we have, the nature projects, all the land is owned by the communities. All the design is done by the communities with our facilitation. So we facilitate the communities through our gender action learning systems, methodological tools. We facilitate the communities to design these projects, and then they have to own the implementation. Our role is to facilitate by training, by providing the equipment, but the whole process should be owned by the communities. And the beginning of the implementation is the real community starting to design what they want. Who are they? What do they want? The community has to tell, to really put their plan on paper. And we take them through this process, which is called the visioning process. The visioning process is where the community's real vision, like they put their brain on paper. They put their vision for us to see. And that is the process we take them through. So this process I'm taking you through now is the visioning process. It's going to be quick, but yes, we can always recap on this when you need it. So the visioning will start, it has steps. The first step is for the communities to decide what they want. What is their vision? So based on their land, based on their resources, so normally they first do their resource map and then they vision. So based on their resource map and what they have said they have, they put their vision on paper. So they put everything that they need. For us, we want to see our forest big. We want to see monkeys in our forest. We want to see a lot of firewood. We want to see whatever the communities want, they throw in this vision that they want. It can be 5 years, it can be 10 years, it can be 15 years. This is community work. For us, we just facilitate. So you don't tell them what to do, but you just help them put it in a form that they understand. Then they have to understand. For you try to understand, but you understand based on their understanding. So don't force your visions in here because that's what you want, but you have to write to the visions of the community. That's why before you do this, you have to assess the communities and know that their vision aligns with your vision. And when you're thinking about their aspirations and thinking about this, how the standard will align with their aspirations, you have to make sure that you are also aligned within this. So do not select communities that where your visions don't align, and you think you will force them to align your vision to theirs. No, you have to move from the community vision, and then you align yourself within that. So you have to know your communities very well. So step 2 is for them to now talk about the present. Yes, they want to be there. They want to have a full-grown forest of 100 hectares in 10 years. But right now, what's there? If they want to build brick houses in 5, 10 years, what do they have right now? So here, you assess the situation, Paul. And they say everything that they are right now. It's very important for the visioning. Then step 3, you try to get the past. Try to make them remember the past. This is good if you have the elders in the meeting. Try to remember the past. This past helps us to remember, to know why we are where we are. So if we had a full-grown forest 10 years ago, what happened? Why don't we have the forest right now? So if we can remember those events, they can help us avoid what caused the forest depletion right now, so that we find solutions to bring back the forest. So remembering the past is very important, but it's not key. If they can't remember the past, it is okay. So These are roads. That's why we put the roads. This shows their roads. This road from the present to the future vision is clear, but the road in the past is broken because many times it's not clear. You might have like one person who remembers, or no one remembers at all, and that's why sometimes you have vision road journeys which don't have the past because no one remembered anything. So that's a broken line. It's a shaky road, but if you have it, it's important for us and for the community. If you don't, it is well. So after you have gotten the state, now you start looking at the drivers. That is point number 4. What challenges have you been facing? In what challenges do you think you're going to face in your vision? Yes, you want to go there, right? Right now, you're here and you want to go to your vision, but you need to look at the challenges that you might face in your road. And after I look at the challenges, then you look at the opportunities. What opportunities do you have that will make you reach your vision? So you have to look at all this. And they should speak out. They should speak out, and it should be participatory. This visionary journey is one of the gender action learning tools that we use, and it's participatory. It encourages everyone to participate. So after that, then you start looking at the milestone, which is step 6. I want to go into my vision in 10 years. So what do I want to see in 5 years? What do I want to see in 8 years? You put those milestones. These milestones will show you that you're moving. Now, here you're moving with communities. And I'm using mainly science because this vision is developed by the communities using science. I'll show you an example later. They use science. We don't use words because communities can't, many times our Ugandan communities don't have a unifying language that they all understand. In any case, they don't know how to write. In any case, they don't know how to read. So we use the pictures that they can all understand. And we encourage less words in this vision. So we use science. That's why I'm using science here, although sometimes I've used words just to bring out my point at this point. So you have milestones, and they'll show you, they'll have to say, how will they know that they have reached? So if they want to have a fully grown forest and now they have nothing, here they can put a half forest. Then in the second milestone, they put like a 3/4 forest. Then in the vision, they have a full-grown forest. So those are just milestones. Then for the milestones, they need to give actions. How will they reach? How will they reach that milestone? What do they do? These actions are the activities that you're going to do to reach that milestone. So that way you have your plan. This is how you have your complete plan of what you want to do. As a community, they already have this. And the steps that we go through are these. These are products from our engagement with the communities. That visionary journey is our main tool because it has everything that we need to develop our project. That vision, as you've seen it, it is a full theory of change. I'll take you there, and you say it is a full theory of change. It has the problem, it has the solution, how you solve the problem, it has where you want to go, it has where you are, it has activities of how you're going to reach there. So it's a full theory of change. And we develop it in this process. We first develop a resource map. As I told you, the resource map says what resource you have. You can't say, I want to grow a forest when you don't have anything like a forest or any land that you can develop in a forest. You can't say, I want to have a papyrus swamp when you don't even have anything like a river in your land. So you need to have the resources, and these resources are what you use for planning. So the first one is a resource map, and then you develop the vision. This is the vision road journey that I just developed. This is how it looks like when it's developed by the communities. There are no words, they are just signs. And these signs are readable, very understood by the community. Each community has a unique one. And you can't carry this one and go use it to another community. No, each community will have their unique vision road journey. So after they develop, they throw their brains, everyone, the youth, the girls, the boys, the women, the old, the young, everyone throws in this. If they can't work in one group, maybe you can develop different visions for different groups, and then you throw everything from the different groups into this one to develop the community vision. So after you have this one, then you develop the multi-lane. The multi-lane is just dividing this vision that we had into unique lanes. For example, the lane is like the road, the lanes in the road. This one goes north, this one goes south, but they are still going the same way and going somewhere, the same point, and coming from the same point. But now these lanes, they are divided. For example, there is an environment lane here. Then there is a livelihoods lane here, the middle one. Then there is the organization development lane down here. So each community will have their different lanes. But now these lanes are the activities you're going to do. So they are the outputs you have. So this lane is for the environmental output. This one is the livelihood output. This one is the community organization output. So these are the outputs that you're going to carry to your theory of change. As I told you, this vision is the theory of change. You just need to get these things, be there when the community is developing, write your notes down as they develop, and then you can get your theory of change. You, the technical. Now me, I look at this and I use my technical knowledge to get the theory of change out of this picture, this multi-lane. It has all the three outputs, and we can use that. And then remember, I told you these ones are the challenges, and then these ones are the opportunities. Now, the opportunities are what you would use, the actions that you will take, what will help you to achieve the outputs. Now, down here, we have the challenges. These challenges, we use them, we get them, and then use them to develop the challenge, to construct a challenge action tree. Now, the communities might not know challenge action tree. That's language jargon for them. But for you, you go through this tool using the information they gave you here, facilitate through the challenge action tree to find the drivers. We have the challenges in the middle here, and then we have the drivers down here, and then the solutions up. So these ones are how we are going to tackle the challenges that might deter us from reaching our visions. So you use this challenge action tree, and then you develop the solutions. And by the time you finish all that, you'll have your theory of change. As I told you, the outcomes, we had 3 outcomes there, but this particular example that I picked out has only 2 lanes. This community had, as you notice, there are different communities. The other one was Alimugonza. This one is Ongo. So every community had their own theory of change based on their vision. So these ones had 2 lanes. They had the conservation lane, and then they had the livelihood lane. So between the activities they said they are going to do, between their challenges and what the solutions were, you develop the theory of change. The challenges and solutions are the activities you're going to do, and that's what they said they are going to do. There they had what they are going to do. That's what you pick and put here. And the results are the visions. Remember the vision that we wanted to see? Those are the visions. These are the results that they have here. So you carry, like if you're developing a project, for example, for us, we have many communities that we work with. So each community has their different theory of change. So you get all this theory of change after converting all those pictures into this jargon that only us, the technical team, understands. This is how I get all these theories of change and combine them into developing the overall theory of change. But this theory of change always they develop their theory of change and then the monitoring plan. How are they going to monitor? How are they going to check? As I told you, they have milestones. How will they monitor to see where they are going, how they have reached? Every community has their monitoring plan. So this is a biodiversity monitoring plan. We have the carbon monitoring plan. They have different monitoring plans based on the particular community. These monitoring plans, as you can see, they are community developed because they're in local languages. We try to convert for it to be useful to us as a technical team, but most of these words, they give you their their indicators in their local language. Here I have the trees are easy, Musizi, but still there is Elio, that one I don't know. They give them in their local language, but we work with the communities to convert them in the language that speaks science. For the birds, for the mammals, that was easy. We converted them because they were few and they were easy. For the birds, some of them, Olechichi, is still in the local language, but we convert them. We use through the capacity, through engaging the communities, we get what this means, and we convert them into proper monitoring plans. So after combining all the theories of change, we have the overall theory of change. Now, this one was developed from all the combined community theories of change that we had. So, and then even the monitoring is a combined. Now, this monitoring aligns to that overall biodiversity theory of change. It has the technical monitoring, which is done by the technical team. It has the supplementary monitoring, which is done from all the monitorings that we do outside the streamlined monitoring. But it also has this, the orange section is the community monitoring section. Now, this is for them what they say they are going to do. And it aligns with our biodiversity monitoring program. So whatever they decide to do, we also put it here and we support them. We develop their capacity. We provide equipment. That's why we need donor funding to support the uptake, the uptake of these programs. If a program will run successfully, we need the donor funding to develop all this before even we get the money from the credits, because the credit comes late after the project is running. So you need that donor funding to make sure that the structures are very well developed and they can deliver the expectations of the project. So the monitoring that the communities do is standard monitoring, depending on what they have agreed to do, but it has to be standardized. For us, we use the standard transects. They're easy, the traditional ones, they're traditional transects that we do, that we've been doing for forever. We train communities on how to conduct. It's just a line, transect existing parts, depending on what you have agreed to do, but they are standard transects that the communities follow, and we just train them to follow this, how to set up their transect, how to monitor what's on the transect, how do they even monitor the distances of how they monitor. We take them through this, and this is something easy for them to do as long as they are trained to do it. So this is the traditional, but for the standard, the requirements of the standard, we have to add on the automated methods. Now, these are requirements of, depending on the standard. For us, as I told you, we use the Plangibo standard, and the requirements are what we follow. So we align through awareness, through capacity building, we align this automated method onto the traditional method that they already know. They already know why they are monitoring, so you don't have to explain that. But then you have to create a buy-in. These automated equipment are not easily acceptable by the community, and you have to go through a proper FP process to make sure that they are acceptable, because they have to work. The monitoring has to be done by the community. They have to accept the gadgets. They have to accept the security to ensure security. They have to ensure that they own the whole process. So we take them through a capacity building process, which is continuous because the communities change. You have to continue empowering them on how to use this equipment. Why are the equipment there? The new communities, when they come in, community members, when they come in, they have to know why these gadgets are there. So we keep on raising their capacity. But the story behind this awareness of acquiring the FPIC, the free prior informed consent of the communities for them accepting these automated gadgets, is first of all, we bring it as an added layer to what they're already doing. So they're already doing their carbon monitoring. They're already doing their biodiversity monitoring. But when you bring this automation, you have to explain that it's not different. It's the same, but we are just picking the information that we don't have. You tell them it's the same process, but there are things that we can't see, and you have to prove. For example, if you tell them, yes, you're planting trees, yes, the trees are for carbon, you get extra money, but you also get in firewood and the fruits and all that. You have to have that additionality that why you're bringing these gadgets. For the biocredits, yes, you're measuring the trees. Yes, you're getting fruit, you're getting food, you're getting firewood, but yes, we can get extra biocredits when we get when we do this, when we add this automated monitoring, it helps us get the biocredits. That will add us more money. But many times we don't use the word biocredits because they sort of relate it to the carbon credits, and they are completely different. So we normally don't use the carbon credit language. Sometimes we use certificates, sometimes we use income stream. We don't, because they work differently, then we can't call it the same name. So as we use different names, we use different language when we're talking about biocredits. But also tell them that they produce this additional information. This additional information, mainly when our automation has camera traps and audio modes. So when you set the camera traps and they get something, show them, take back the information to them. They're excited to see, oh, we've seen baboons, we've seen chimpanzees, oh, we have chimpanzees, oh, they are here. They enjoy the videos, they enjoy what you have done. For the audio mods, we have those recordings of nice birds. Then this is one, this is on a chichi, this one, they identify the bird and they get attached to the information that has been produced. And that's how you get the buy-in. You get the buy-in, and mainly if you're promoting, for example, ecotourism, and you're showing them what they have, they're like, oh, now we can increase our list. Oh, we also have this. They add it on their species list, and then they're excited to be part of this. And it's basically a very good knowledge sharing platform for us as EcoTrust, as we transfer the knowledge. From the technical person, me who trains my technical staff, and then the technical staff trains the communities, and the communities train others. That knowledge transfer comes out very well from here, because these communities, when they receive the information, especially the youth are so interested in this automated monitoring. Meanwhile, the elders love the transits because it's easy, they understand. For them, they know what they are monitoring, and they only monitor what they understand. You won't force them to monitor what they don't understand. And the old people understand this herb is used for this tree is used for this fruit is this is vegetable. So they have that attachment. Meanwhile, the youth have an attachment to these automated high-tech gadgets. So that's how all the communities is involved. And that knowledge transfer goes on. They are happy to share with the others, saying, oh, we know this, we saw this is that, that knowledge transfer is very good, especially engaging using the indigenous knowledge. Okay, then that is the first section of how we develop the theory of change and how the monitoring is done. Now, we were given homework last time to have value propositions, to develop our value propositions for the market-based incentives. Now we have the homework of, based on your market incentives, based on the visions that you have, can you develop a theory of change? Going through the process, when you go through the process that I've taken you through, I know I was quick, but you picked something. You have homework. You have homework to do here, and we're going to share the homework. So I'll stop sharing for now, and we share the homework, and I explain the homework. There's Pauline, I don't know how to handle the questions. There's a hand. I don't know whether it's an urgent one or I can proceed.
I think that let the person who, I don't think there is a hand, but let whoever has a question put it in the chat.
There's Ivan or Ruka. I don't know whether it's a hand
Yeah,
or
no, let everybody just put their questions in the chat, and then we'll take them when we take them.
Okay. So thank you. So I took you the process of developing a theory of change, starting from just a vision. So you have your value proposition as was given to you in last week's homework. Now I'm adding you homework to use the value proposition. I hope you did your homework. I haven't checked, but I'm assuming you did your homework. Now from the value proposition that you have, you're going to develop a theory of change. Going through the process that I have taken you through. So how do you plan to turn your value proposition, that biodiversity or climate challenge that you have into an investment opportunity? So that is the homework you're going to do. You can think about it. This one is in the workbook. The workbook was shared. Yeah, the workbook has been shared. So when you go to your workbook, you will have this. You need to try it out. We are raising the capacity to get more projects into the nature markets, mainly African projects into the nature market. So you need to try out this. We at EcoTrust are available to provide the support for you to try out this, and you can develop something simple. You never know. It might come out as your next 20-year project for your organization. So I'll leave you with that homework.
Diana, there is a question that is relevant to theory of change. Maybe you could respond to it. How important are assumptions in developing the theory of change?
Yes, thank you very much. The assumptions help us to look ahead, to plan ahead. For example, the risks that might happen. It's good to think through your plan right now. Think through what you want to do. The assumptions help tackle the risks that you might see ahead. So it's very important to have those assumptions for your theory of change, in your theory of change. So this is, after you develop this and you're submitting a proposal, you need to put all those risks, the assumptions, you complete the budgets. Those are all additionals to this, but they're very important because they help you tackle the risk plan for the risks before you reach there. So very important. Thank you for that. Okay, so after we develop, we've jumped so many things, we've jumped the implementation, but now, how do we quantify the biodiversity benefits? As we have, as EcoTrust, we have the nature benefits, the biodiversity benefits, and then we have the carbon benefits. So I'm going to quickly take you through briefly, how do we quantify the biodiversity benefits? Yes, we will monitor, but these have to be quantified, and in the end, they have to come out as money, as credits, as money. So how do we turn this into the credits? So we use a 5-pillar metric, model, which I'm trying to explain now. We measure change in species. This species data is collected using those the automated and the transects. We develop the species data, which is on birds, plants, bats, fish, whatever you choose. Whatever you choose depending on your habitat. And this one should fit the community aspirations and also your aspiration as the organization. They should align. And then we also have the habitat data, which is on land use, on habitat quality and connectivity. All that data we collect. This data is measured annually. And as I told you, we use the digital, but also the transect, the traditional transect. So it's a hybrid. We use hybrid depending on what you're measuring, because there are some things that don't have the digital methods. If you have those that don't have the digital methods, you can use a hybrid. It has to have digital by all means, because of accountability, because of replicability, the digital and the proof that yes, this is really there. Normally, we have to use that digital, the automated methods, but also to fit the global standard. And then data is analyzed by machine learning platforms and human experts. And this is tested. So we add machine learning and human as we train the machines, we use the human experts to train the machines. And by the time, for example, 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, the machine learning will be perfected for your project or for that particular landscape. So it's a combined process. And then we track general trends in ecosystem health. So it's the whole ecosystem. We don't just pick species or habit, we track the whole ecosystem. So that's why it's very holistic, because you have to look at everything. If the communities are affecting the habitat, it will come out. If the ecosystem is being affected by climate, it will come out. So we use that ecosystem approach to track the general trends. And then the unit of measure is a percentage change per hectare per year. So depending on your landscape, we consider a percentage exchange per year. And these measurements align with the standard, with the certification standard that we chose as EcoTrust. So this should align with the standard of your choice. And what is a biodiversity certificate? It's an evidence-based outcome for biodiversity, climate, and communities. As I told you, it's an ecosystem approach. So it has to speak to biodiversity, to climate, and to communities. It should be additional and verifiable. It's a trend. Every year we add on. Like if you're restoring a forest, every year has to have some change. So it has to be, it has to show some additionality. What did you do this year? What have you done different? What have you increased? It has to be additional and verifiable through those methods that I talked about in the previous slides. So this standard has conservation certificates and restoration certificates. Conservation rewards sites for maintaining their baseline. So if you have your project and it's a conservation project, it requires you to do interventions that are going to maintain this site at the baseline where you found it. We don't expect change, but we expect you to maintain the site. Then for the restoration certificate, if your project is for restoration, you have to have percentage gains per hectare per year. So for restoration, there has to be a change. There has to be a biodiversity uplift for every year per hectare, there has to be change. Meanwhile, for conservation, you maintain the baseline because for restoration projects, they move until sometimes they reach the conservation project where however much you put in input, there is no additional change. Then you become a conservation project. So this standard has two options that you can choose you as a project, depending on your project requirements. So after picking all the requirements, how do we assess the change over time? This is where the 5-pillar metric comes in, which we use for quantifying the trends. So we use 5 well-established peer-reviewed metrics. These are standard metrics, scientifically proven, verifiable. Also the scientific world uses all this. And we have 5 pillars. We have pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3, which are species pillars. We have pillar 4 and 5, which are habitat pillars. The species pillars are species richness, which just considers the number of species that you recorded, species that you have. Then we have species diversity, which considers a measure of the number of species, the diversity, the distribution, evenness in the site. And then we have taxonomic dissimilarity, which considers how different the species are, the species recorded are across the sites that you have surveyed. And then we have these 3, pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3 are gotten from the automated and the transit methods that I described. Then pillar 4 and 5 are habitat pillars, and they are gotten from satellite imagery. We have the habitat health, which is calculated from the NDVI in the normalized difference vegetation index, which just considers the greenness, the health, how healthy, how green is this habitat. Then we have the habitat spatial structure. This one is got from the CPLAN index, and it shows how connected are these habitats? How connected is this habitat? So that's why I told you it's an ecosystem approach. So we consider all that. And then when we add the species data and the habitat data, we combine all this into a multimetric. This is one figure that's calculated from all this. We get one figure. Now, this one figure every year determines how many plant biodiversity certificates you get. So in all the things we just get one figure, which is multimetric because it has the 5 matrices, and then it gives us how many plant certificates you will get. So that is it for the biodiversity, quantifying biodiversity. Now we are moving to quantifying the carbon benefits. The whole process, certification process is the same, but the quantification is the difference. So we are done with the biodiversity certification. We are moving to carbon benefits, and I'll invite Lydia to come and take us through this.
Diana, before you go away, maybe very quickly, do you have a minimum land size? Also, when you go to an expansion area, do you do the monitoring again?
Thank you. If I answer that according to the Plan Vivo standards, the Plan Vivo standards considers smallholders. So you as the project developer, you need to have, for example, when you consider the input, the processes, you need to have a minimum standard for you, a minimum size that works for you as a project, that is viable for you as a project. You won't do very small land sizes because it's not worth the investment. So you have to consider the investment and then consider the output. And all these procedures have costs. So you look at the costs, the return on investment, and you consider the land sizes. But the Plan Vivo standard considers smallholders. So the land can be as small as is viable to you, but they normally limit the larger land holdings. If you prove that you can progressively develop, like you can expand from a small site, I'll first develop this site, and then I increase, and then I increase, and then I increase. There is a class of samples of sizes that are considered normal. Then Plan Vivo has what they term super sites. Super sites are the bigger sites. The monitoring, the certification differs, but the super sites start from I think 20,000. Then from there you become a super site. The processing is the same, but it differs a little because the monitoring won't be the same, and the quantification won't be the same, but the whole certification process will be the same. So if you are developing your project idea note or your PDD, you have to indicate that, okay, I'm starting with 2,000, 1,000 hectares, but my plan of expansion is this. After 2 years, I'm planning to add another 5,000. And then after 10 years, I'm planning to add 10,000. And then my real size is 20,000. You want me to develop the whole process again, as long as...
So Diana, okay, sorry. So Diana, do you always do a baseline on the new site that you're adding on?
If it's different from...
Okay, so you can do a baseline that covers all the targeted sites, but onboard every... But if the location is different, then you have to do the baseline again, right?
Yes.
Okay. And someone asked about our minimum size. Because we do a cooperative scheme, both for biodiversity and for carbon, we design for scale. So we have people even as small as what's her name? Lydia, you can start sharing your screen. I don't know if it's the same one. So because we design for scale, we can take, we have even people that have 0.1 hectares participating for as long as it makes economic sense for all the people that are participating. So for us, we know there is a minimum area that we need to break even, but we design for scale, so we can even onboard people that just put aside 0.1 hectares, because in the whole landscape together, we aggregate land holdings from very many different beneficiaries. Over to you, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Edie. As we have heard from the previous speaker about developing a holistic nature-based projects, and she has taken us through how to develop to quantify the biocredits. I'm going to take us briefly on how to quantify the carbon credits. Yeah, so a carbon credit basically is a tradable certificate that represents a right to emit 1 ton of carbon dioxide or its equivalent. So it's basically you emit 1 ton of CO2, but you're able to compensate, to do activities that compensate to remove those emissions from the atmosphere. So carbon credits are generated basically by doing activities that remove or reduce the emissions from the atmosphere. And from our slide, the emissions from the atmosphere all tend from the greenhouse gases. So when we are interacting with the communities, when we are developing these solutions, we start together with the communities understanding the climate connections. And the communities understand that yes, they have faced the drought, they have stronger storms, their seasons have changed. So we start from understanding what problems are affecting us. Then from there, then we develop interventions that are based on the management objectives of the farmers. And we make them understand that the tree planting as one of the main management objectives, tree planting assists in removing the carbon dioxide, which is one of the greenhouse gases, and gives us the good air, which is oxygen, which we breathe in. And in that process, the tree tracks the carbon, which is not good for our environment. So we design interventions that are generated from the management objectives of the farmers. And there are several forestry carbon where we can generate carbon credits. There are several of them. There is reducing emissions from deforestation, reducing emissions from degradation. There is sustainable management of forest, enhancement of forest carbon stocks, as well as conversion of forest carbon stocks. So us as EcoTrust, because we are working with the smallholder farmers, we have designed our nature-based projects based on increasing or enhancing the forest carbon stocks. And this is basically we work with communities to be able to increase trees on their farm. Next slide. I'm going to share how we basically calculate a carbon credit. So we start with remember I've told you that it's not all about the tree planting. It's not all about the tree planting only, but it's also on it encompasses all the activities that are done on that land that the farmers are planting that trees to be able to benefit the farmer themselves. So the carbon, how to calculate carbon, we have several equations that we use to calculate carbon, and then the the major attributes we look at the diameter at base height, we measure how big the tree is, but also we measure the tree height as well as the crown width. It is also important because different trees sequester different amount of carbon. Every different tree has its own wood density, and I'm going to share an example where you see how we are able to calculate this carbon credit. So that is one of the equations. We have very many equations. Some tree species have specific equations to be able to calculate their biomass. So this is how and it starts from calculating the tree biomass, then we convert it to the carbon. We don't start from calculating the carbon. No, we start from calculating the weight of the tree, what is the weight of the tree, what is the weight of the tree, what is the dry weight of the tree, and also what is the carbon. So from our calculations, also from science, half of the dry weight of the wood is carbon that was removed from the air by growing the tree. So when you grow a tree and it grows, know that half of its weight, when that tree is dry, half of its weight is the carbon that you have trapped from the atmosphere. And by doing that, you'll be removing the part of the greenhouse gases that are usually emitted from activities that are done here on Earth. As I've said, it is not all about the trees only. It is also about the other activities and other emissions that happen when a farmer is doing these interventions. So we have another tool called the Smallholder Agriculture Mitigation Benefit Assessment. It helps us to be able to assess and quantify all the activities from a piece of land. You can quantify biomass burning, you can quantify nitrogen inputs, you can use it to quantify nitrogen fertilizers in case people are using artificial fertilizers. You can even use it to calculate the soil carbon stocks as well as changing the woody biomass. But also you can also use it to calculate the litter that falls on ground when crops are grown. But also it can also help us to get the carbon or the contribution emission reductions from the crops themselves that we grow, the cover crops like beans, peas, and all that. So when we are calculating when we are quantifying the carbon dioxide, we look at the tree biomass, that is the tree, but we also look at other activities that are done on the land, and we quantify all of them, and then we can know whether our initiative is benefiting the community or not. So here I'm going to take us through how we calculate. As I've told you, we have several equations or arithmetic equations which we use to use carbon, but the most important parameters are like two. There are three most important parameters when you're calculating carbon. That's the wood density of the tree and the diameter at base height, how big the tree is, and also how tall the tree is, that is tree height. Okay, there are some equations which need the crown width, but there are some which don't need the crown width. So I'm going to take us through how we can be able to calculate. So we have species. I have pre-put species. We have Albizia, we have Vennonia, Myzopsis. So you can help me put maybe a DBH of 30, and maybe a height of 12, and maybe a crown width of 5. And then it will give you the wood density is is already predetermined. Every tree has a different wood density, and this is the information you can find on published data online. Then it will give you the above ground biomass. There are two types of biomasses you're going to calculate. You calculate the above ground biomass, and that will incorporate the tree trunk itself and the branches. Then you also calculate the below ground biomass, which is half of the above ground biomass. And then you get the total tree carbon, the total biomass. Then after getting the total biomass, then you can calculate it to the tree carbon. And the tree carbon, as I told you, it is half of the weight of the dry weight of the tree. So you can click down on the 7. Yes, you can see that total tree carbon is half of the total biomass that you have calculated. So you don't start by calculating carbon, but it stems from knowing the wet weight of the tree, dry weight of the tree, then the total biomass, and then you're able to get the tree carbon. You can even add another layer and equate it to a hectare. Yeah. So, and if for example, you can continue putting all these figures down, 30 and 12. I want to show them that each tree sequesters trees has different carbon. You can see those trees of 0.46 as their wood density have that. The bigger the wood density, the more the carbon that is sequestered. You can see this antivirus, which had 0.37, it has only 175 tons of carbon, but Myzotis, which has let me take Venonia, which has 0.6, it has around 280. So that is how we calculate, and we use this method to be able to understand and know how much carbon that is coming from each farmer's garden. Thank you very much.
Okay, as Sheila prepares, oh, it's okay. Go through it, and then I would please, if you have any comments, questions, just put them in the chat, and then within the next 15 minutes, we should be now in the question answer session. Over to you, Sheila.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sheila Kashabe. I work with EcoTrust. Thank you to the previous presenters for taking us through that. Is it shown? I'll take us through the MRV model that we use at EcoTrust. So at EcoTrust, we use the community aspiration to come up with high integrity conservation investment. So it doesn't begin with carbon, but it begins with what the community wants. So we basically work with communities from the start, like Dr. Diana presented, like Lydia has presented. So from the start, it starts with what does the community want or need? What do they need from the carbon program that you are, or the carbon program or the biocredits program or restoration program that you are introducing? And then from this is how we build the MRV system. So MRV systems are not just about the technology that has been built. So it's not about building technology. It's actually about ensuring that what you are communicating is high level, it is auditable, it is traceable, and it is serving the community. So the first principle is making sure that you are not replacing any of the community's needs while introducing technology. And everything that you are introducing, be it an application or what, it has to speak to what the community needs. So we are using technology, first of all, to remove the drudgery of the process, but also maintain the rigor. What I mean is we are using technology to simplify. It's not replacing the human need, but to simplify the process of, let's say, for example, if you are, right now we are working with about 50,000 farmers. If you are working with 50,000 farmers and you are collecting information using papers, it becomes difficult, first of all, to store, to analyze, to work with all those records. So you use technology to make work simpler, but also maintain what the system needs, what the reporting needs are, and what the donor needs from you. And also the information that you are collecting from these systems, is it independently verifiable? If another auditor is to come in, if another organization is to use this information, can they verify it? Can they use it for research? Can they use it to, come up with another program? So the information you're collecting has to be accurate. So when you have efficient systems, the data moves quickly. So from the field to the decision makers, it moves quickly. Most of the cases, the ultimate goal is to have it real time, and sometimes it's difficult, but if the system is efficient, then it will move quickly. It will be accurate, because with technology, we have things like automation. So when the people are collecting information, some of the answers are automated or calculations are automated, so it's accurate. And it also provides for transparency. Transparency is for both the organization or even the communities, but also for the donor. So with efficient systems, ultimately the goal is to build donor trust and confidence. Because when you have things like trust-based funding, this is where the trust comes from. If they are getting information that can be audited, then they will trust you with the funding, and also provides accountability for the organization. So if you're saying that EcoTrust has worked in this landscape for 27 years, then you need to have information that speaks to that. And you need to have information that speaks to the impact, which comes from these systems. I would like to show you so I'll take you through one of the restoration plans we have developed. One of the presenters talked about developing restoration plans, and the whole system starts from the restoration plan. So the restoration plan is the foundation of MRV, actually, at least for the projects and programs we are working with. It starts from the restoration plan, which is a communication of the community needs. Sorry. So when you get into the community and they communicate their visionary journeys and say, for us, we want to plant trees, maybe because it's for watershed protection, or it's for, you don't just get into the community and be like, plant 500 hectares. That is not what the program does. So the program will ask, why are we planting 500 hectares? What is the value proposition of planting the 500 hectares? And they develop their visions. We already talked about that. So the science from the vision is changing it into a restoration plan. So the restoration plan is basically the science of the visionary journey. Their vision was to have clean water, say, for example, in a community. So the restoration plan is how are we going to achieve the clean water using tree planting, let's say. So when you get into the community, you profile the community. And this is an example of the profiling. This is an example of the profiling. So that the different communities you'll get into will have different profiles. So it really depends on where you are working. You do the locations, what kinds of institutions are in the community, how much land they have. In some cases, you'll find communities are not willing to give out certain information, and it's okay. for example, like how much total land size is available for the community. Some people will think, hey, these guys want to grab our land, things like that. So they will not give you that information, but they'll give you information on how much area they are willing to put into restoration. So that is the profile, depending on the type of community you've landed into. And then you do a baseline of the community, encompassing the land characteristics, for example, what is the soil type in the area, the land use, what are they currently using the land for? Is it fallow land? Are these people grazers? Are they using the land for grazing? Do they keep animals? So what are they using the land for? What are the climate factors of the area? What is the land tenure system and ownership structure in the area? How are the livelihoods? And what are the barriers that could prevent restoration in the community? So you baseline, again, it's what you're baselining is not written in stone. It really depends on what the project or program is doing and what the community wants to do. And then from that, the communities normally comes from the whole visioning process. So the community itself will tell you how they want to implement the practices. For example, we have decided to use woodlot because we want to use our trees for timber. Or we've decided to use boundary because for us, the biggest challenge is boundary. We have a lot of land fight because our boundaries are not demarcated. And so we are using boundary for that. So really it's what are the expected benefits and what is the proposed implementation practice. And based on that, you can get the kinds of species that they're going to plant. Lydia already talked about things like the wood density and whatnot. So if they are doing it for the carbon, obviously they'll go for the trees that have, if they match the soil type. If they're doing it for demarcation, they'll probably go for fast growing, something like that. So it depends on, yes. So you also baseline the existing seedling sources to see where they will be able to get seedlings from. So that is the restoration plan, and we have a dashboard. So everything that you do for recruitment of these farmers comes from that restoration plan. The recruitment has to speak to the restoration plan. So for example, this restoration plan was for Northern Uganda, and we say that, I'll take an example of like the Agelek parish. They say they have about 480 hectares to put under restoration, improved management, and we were able to recruit 224. So when you're doing the recruitment, you are tracking it against the restoration plan that you developed. And if you go beyond and above, it's okay. That is impact, and that shows that your systems are working. So that is just an example of one of the restoration plans we came up with. Okay. Oops, sorry. Then I would like to show you an example of how we use another kind of technology, GIS, to do reporting. So some people think that GIS is about visualization or reporting, but you can use it across the whole system. You can use it for planning, you can use it for visualizing, you can use it for reporting and communication. So this is Uganda, and I'll take two examples. We have our Makshon landscape that is around the Makshon area where the Makshon folds are, and we have the Mount Elgon landscape. So we have polygons of farmers that we recruited in the Elgon. This is the Mount Elgon. And these are the blacks, sorry, they're in black, but I'll just explain why. The blacks are some of the farmers that we have recruited. So when you look at this map, it shows green, you're seeing green and red mostly, but the red area is where the mountain has the steepest slope. So it has the highest run of water. And one of the goals for going into Mount Elgon was to promote water catchment and make sure that the areas that have surface runoff, a high surface runoff, are protected and prevent things like landslides or soil erosion. So you will see that some of the farmers that we've recruited in Mount Elgon are around those areas because they have high levels of surface runoff. So you don't just go recruiting that we need farmers here, we need farmers. You need to have a reason. And when you go at the bottom here, there are no slopes, but this is normally, when you look at these lines, it's normally how water moves downstream. So these farmers that are here are normally in the areas where water settles and or where the river banks are. So these farmers, their main goal was to protect the river banks. Yeah, so that is one of the reasons. So you can use GIS for planning to go into a landscape. We want to do this. Then another case scenario that we have is the Maction area. If I show you some of the farmers we've recruited, the yellow polygons are some of the farmers that we have recruited. Our main goal of going into Maction was to protect the corridor between this forest, which is Bungoma, and this forest, which is Budongo. And also protect protect the buffer areas of the forest. So it's not just go recruiting. The aim is recruit farmers to plant trees and do connectivity around this corridor, but also make sure that the areas surrounding or the villages surrounding the areas are planted, the land around it is planted to protect the integrity of the forest. So again, for planning purposes, we use GIS. So I'll explain briefly the Mount Elgon part, just briefly, why we recruited farmers in these areas. Again, this is just an analysis of the polygons that I showed you. One, the reds are the polygons that I showed. One, it's in the steep slope. So recruitment happens along the steep slopes to prevent. These are the slopes that are susceptible to soil erosion. Then also near the waterways, where surface runoff is high. And then these are also the areas that had high land degradation. If you loaded land cover, you would see that these are the areas that had high degradation. The risk of soil erosion was up. Watershed importance, because these areas contribute the most to runoff and sedimentation. Again, this is, yeah. And then that means it makes them priority restoration areas. So you need to communicate that we are recruiting in these areas because these are the things we are trying to solve, not that it's about carbon. So again, at EcoTrust, it's about what the community needs. So when that is done, when you have the restoration plan and it is complete, you convert this plan to eventual benefits to the farmers. So the conversion is really the whole process of MRV. They do the restoration planning, we go in for community engagement that has already been talked about. I'll not dwell on it, where we really identify households that are interested, the landowners, what is their ownership structure. So we do an eligibility screening. So these farmers go ahead to apply to join the project, and this is when we start building the registry in a project system. So different projects have different registries depending on what the donor needs are or what the organizational needs are. Yeah, so they do that. Then the biggest thing is going in to verify and review these farmers, where we're doing the plot boundary mapping, the ownership, the baselining assessments, and whatnot. One of the good things that happens in the review process is you go to the farmer and interact with them. And I'll show you some of the information that we come up with when we do the review process. Sorry, this is good. Yeah, so as you can see, this whole thing is digitized and we have all their information here. The farmer is all the biodata of the farmer, what they want to plant. And I'll show you one of them. of the things they develop is the land use plan. It's just, how do I want to use my land for the next 20 years? How am I using it for improved management? So we have this land use plan. Is that shown? So we have this land use plan. We have this land use plan of a farmer called John Bosco. The farmers do these things themselves. It's just a matter of building their capacity. And he's talking about my planting system is dispersed. He will tell you why he wants to do it dispersed: for soil fertility improvement, for income, and for windbreaks. So he draws what he envisages his land to look like. He's saying C is for coffee, T is for the trees, and then he even indicates the baseline trees that are available. So when we go to do the review, again, you have to baseline that plot. What was the impact of the project? You only get that after you baseline. So he will show you that he probably had one tree at baseline, and these are the trees he wants to add. But really, the benefit is he wants income, he wants soil fertility, and so they do all that, and we record and keep all that information. The land use plan is almost like a contract with the farmer. This is what I want to do, and this is how I want to use my land. Yeah, and then we also have like proper pictures of the farmers. For example, this is the guy who wanted to plant the trees and on his farm. So MRV helps us to keep all this, other than having photos stored in office and all that, you're using digital systems to keep all this information. So after the review process, we do the planting and restoration. So you implement, this is where implementation of your restoration plan starts. You do the distribution and planting, you do farmer capacity building depending on their needs. Do they want to learn how to do silviculture practices? So all that, depending on what they want, and they adopt what was communicated in the restoration plan. Then we do not stop at planting. You have to go and monitor the survival rates. You do tree survival assessments. We do things like DBH measurements, which helps us compute biomass that has already come from the previous presentation. But we also do a combination of ground truthing and remote sensing. So you cannot just depend on one system to say that people went to monitor, but like they went to monitor, but how do you prove that the trees are there? So that is where remote sensing comes in, and you do the livelihood tracking, the carbon tracking, the biodiversity tracking. Then you do the modeling that has already been talked about. Then eventually, when the monitoring is finished, that is where the performance-based benefits come in. And some of the tools that we are using, I've already spoken about this, ArcGIS, mobile applications, and GPS. So carbon is not just an outcome, of good restoration planning, but I mean, it's an outcome. It's not the primary objective. So when you're starting a project, it's not about carbon. It's not about credits. You have to have a reason why you're getting into that. The model of MRV has just the different stages. Where we started from feasibility, you do visioning, you do landscape restoration planning, you do recruitment, implementation, but all these stages generate data. And this evidence is assurance to the donor that your conservation finance is of high integrity, or the credits you're producing are of high integrity. You need to have all these things that the stuff on the right is what comes out of these processes. So we have the vision plans, we have the restoration plans, the farmer registry, the planting reports, monitoring reports. So all these things is what communicates to the donor to trust your program. So with MRV comes the verified restoration outcomes. We have transparent performance tracking. We have credible carbon claims and evidence-based benefit sharing. So at EcoTrust, we are combining community visions with science and MRV for high integrity finance. And MRV is not simply a reporting requirement, it's the bridge between what the community aspires, restoration action, and investor confidence with impact. So we are transforming local vision into verifiable outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sheila, Diana, Lydia. We have a few questions still remaining, and mostly for Diana. You talked about the metrics for biodiversity. What do you use to measure impact on, for example, livelihoods? Do you have a metric or pillar for that? But also, do you have a pillar for inputs? Yeah, I think those are the outstanding ones. Another person talked about explain how to use machine learning. Maybe Sheila, you could do that. But yeah, I mean, every good thing comes to an end. We just have 5 minutes to go. Diana, maybe if you can talk about, do you have a specific metric or pillar for biodiversity-based livelihoods and also for the interventions themselves? Because what you talked about is really just the biodiversity benefits. And for Sheila, if you could explain what machine learning is.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so as I mentioned that we assess the ecosystem, the state of the ecosystem, and what I just showed was how to assess biodiversity. But there are other, as Sheila highlighted, all these the MRV system tracks the input in whatever, which farmer is inputting this, which farmer, this farmer has this plan, and the restoration plan is this, their vision is this, what they expect is this. So the MRV system is the one tracking everything. So they'll track the inputs in, for example, restoration. If you have for the biocredits, if you have a restoration project, that means you have restoration input, restoration interventions. So those ones are going to be tracked at that level of what have you put in, what are you putting in, what have you done for restoration, how many trees have you done, how much monitoring have you done, how much patrols have you done? How much costs have gone into this? So there is that input that goes into the implementation bits, and that one is tracked at that level. But it has to have, whatever you do, it's excellent to have biodiversity outcome, livelihood outcome, and climate outcomes. So when you're tracking biodiversity, but then the livelihoods are tracked under the business leg. In the same program, we have the business development leg, which focuses on biodiversity-based livelihoods. Now that is another tracking. When you're, for example, as I said, if your interest is in ecotourism, you're going to track the ecotourism inputs, ecotourism benefits. Now that's a different tracking, but they're all under the same Sheila MRV, but different trackings. So we track everything. What I showed was just the biodiversity benefits, but even the livelihood benefits are tracked through different MRV systems. So everything is tracked. In the end, we have the communities having their return on investment, whatever they put. I hope I've answered that question. So on the machine learning, as I mentioned, you train the machine AI. The machine is AI. It's AI. We like train a human in AI. So we build models, AI models, and we teach that AI to identify, for example, birds in our landscape. So you have that model where you say, okay, when this sound comes, you tell AI it is this. As I told you, it's a combination of human experts and machine learning. So you tell this machine that when you hear this sound, it is this red-chested sandbird. When you hear this sound, it is a common bulbul. When you hear this sound, it's the eastern chimpanzee. So these human experts identify the sounds or the pictures or whatever data that has been put in, initially it's like the human experts is identifying everything. So you keep on telling AI, this sound is this sound recorded under this audio mode is this sound is this. With time, AI will be able to identify that this sound is this, so it will be automated. Every time the data comes in, you tell the AI will be able to identify the species that have been recorded. So that is the machine learning. It's just teaching AI how to identify the biodiversity of your land. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Arnold, did people make any inputs into the Slido? If they
Yes.
did, okay, it would be nice for you to share. Olivia, I think we have come to the end of our session. So next week, we will be bringing back the benefit sharing arrangements. We had Dr. Diana mention that when we sell the income from the biodiversity credits or carbon credits, 40% is used by EcoTrust for the certification, for the monitoring, for the capacity building, for farmer recruitment, and everything that MRV, as Sheila has shared it. And then the 60% goes to the community. There are different ways of how it goes to the different communities or different participants choose how they would want to deal with the 60%. When it comes to the carbon credits, 90% of that 60% goes directly to the pockets of the household that planted the trees. And then the 10% is available to be shared by the entire community, but also to deal with risk that is associated with the trees. When it comes to the biodiversity credits, there is no direct cash transfers that are going to the communities, to the households, because the communities have decided that they will use all that money to invest in businesses, and then they earn from the businesses. So in the next seminar, you will be hearing from the beneficiaries themselves on what they've been able to do with the money that they have received, either at a group level or individual level. But you'll also see all the other benefits: the social capital construction, the human capital development, the assets, how assets have grown, and so on and so forth. So you will hear from the beneficiaries themselves the testimonials of what it means to them as participating. So Arnold, do you want to take us through this? And then we give it back to you, Olivia. So Olivia, so these are the different, what is it called? Marketing of fish bonds. Who did the marketing of fish bonds? Maybe they could tell us something about marketing of fish bonds. What's the value proposition from the marketing of fish bonds? What's the value proposition that is associated with that? Are you able to link them? That's a very interesting one.
I think it's anonymous submissions, so I can't tell
Oh,
who it was.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but these are some of the business ideas or the business cases that people have after having participated in the first webinar. These are the business ideas that people are coming up with. So we are hoping that now that you have listened to this, you will develop the theories of change for those initiatives that you have developed. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I give it back to you, Olivia and Yemi. Do you have value propositions as well?
No, unfortunately, people were not able to submit their value propositions.
Okay. So it's very important for us to receive feedback on whether what we are, the knowledge that you're sharing, the innovations we're sharing, whether it does make sense. So over to you, Olivia, and maybe Yemi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pauline, for that. And yeah, I know it has been really amazing. Personally, I've enjoyed the presentation from EcoTrust, and we're happy that you guys were able to share that. I don't know, I know we are 4 minutes past time, but I don't know if Yemi would want to say anything or I just proceed.
Proceed.
Okay, good. So I think that will be the end of our second webinar. I have shared in the chat box the registration link for the third one. And as you've heard from Pauline, it's gonna be interesting because you're going to meet these people who have benefited from what EcoTrust is doing. So I'm personally looking forward to that. So you can register already for the third webinar. And we'll also be sharing the slide presentations that we've had today to your emails, so don't worry about that. And again, thank you so much for creating time to be part of this. And I think if it's possible, Arnold, we will also share the Slido link so that people can continue filling in the business names and the value propositions as we wait for the third webinar. So again, thank you so much for joining the session today and have a lovely afternoon, everyone.